Here we are, guys.
We're in our third hour.
We're in our third hour now.
Food and rations are running low. So we talked about the differences in our previous approach to making film and our new approach, and the things we've learned in the past, and how we plan on going ahead into it in the future.
Yep.
So that's what this episode's about, guys.
Fantastic. Okay, have fun, guys. So I want to talk to you about how your approach to writing has changed from Flesh and Ivory to how...
Man.
Yeah. I don't mean the product. So I don't mean like observable changes between... Maybe you can put this in if you like. Yep. Observable changes between that script and between a script you're writing at the moment. But like, has your actual process changed?
Yeah.
And how? How has it changed?
I was talking about my approach to writing earlier. I'm probably going to repeat myself a lot here, but when I was writing Flesh and Ivory, I'm going to try and be as non-specific as I can, but also still make my point. I had an idea fairly early on in the writing process for what I thought, not just a cool ending could be, but what I thought a fitting ending could be for the screenplay. And what's dangerous about this, and for the most part, I think it works pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I think the story works, and I definitely came from the point of view that I really wanted to investigate something that I was quite embarrassed about.
Sure.
As a person.
Yeah.
And so...
Which is a good place to start for anybody with writer's block.
Yeah. Just talk about what's
if
hard.
If you currently have writer's block...
Yeah.
Don't write something autobiographical. That's the first step. You can if you like, but this is just a suggestion that I have for you. Put your phone away, turn everything off, go sit in your room, and sit by yourself for about 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You might find it takes 1 minute.
Yeah.
And just think about your life and think about how quickly something comes up that you're dissatisfied with, and then write about that.
Yeah.
And make a story about that.
And ask yourself why.
Yeah. That's a really good way to start any screenplay. If you're ever strapped for ideas in writer's block land, just do that shit.
Yeah.
And by the way, if that one stunts...
It's just a good thing to do for any reason.
Exactly.
As well.
And if that one stunts, you're like, fuck, I have writer's block about this one as well. Yeah. Just do that thing again and write about something completely different. And eventually, I promise you, something will catch on. And if it doesn't, you'll have an anthology movie.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because you'll have another bunch of little scripts.
That's it.
Alright, so don't worry.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's where I was coming from writing Flesh and Ivory. But I had the idea for the ending early on.
Mm-hmm.
And the consequence of that is I was writing to reach a particular destination.
Yeah.
And maybe the contents of the things being said were honest, but the pace of the decisions being made and...
Because they have to rush
some
to
of the
end.
particular... Exactly.
Yeah.
And also it's worth mentioning as well that this was written... in university when we were told that the maximum time limit for the film could be 15 minutes. So I was trying to make my point now also while reaching an end that I'd predetermined for myself, which I'm just not going to fucking do again.
Yeah.
Because I just realized how much it limited myself.
Which, by the way, I'm against word limits.
Yeah, there you go.
I think you are too.
Yeah.
Scene limits, word limits, all that shit.
Yeah.
To paraphrase David Lynch, who once beautifully said on the set, who gives a fucking shit how long a scene is. Who gives a fucking shit how long or short a movie is?
Yeah, who gives a fuck?
So anyhow, keep going. So you're writing to get to the end.
Yeah, I was writing to get to the end, but also writing to get to it within 15 minutes.
Yeah, which is ridiculous.
Which is now just, okay, Isaac, juggle these two balls as well while you're trying to figure out this thing that you didn't even know the answer to.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I thought I had an answer to the question I was asking myself that I thought could be... I found it helpful to me, and I thought it could be helpful to some people who might be going through the same thing.
Sure.
So I felt good putting it down on paper.
Okay.
But how I arrived at that in the story could have been so much better.
Sure.
Had I literally just submitted a 30-minute film and said, fuck it, fail me.
Sure.
This is what it is.
Yeah.
And also just been happy to... change the ending.
Yeah. I also think that your answer or whatever it is in Flesh and Ivory is more so a proposal than an answer.
Yeah.
It's more so like, you could try this.
Yeah.
As opposed to, here's the solution to life, the universe.
Yeah, guys, I don't have the fucking... thank you for clarifying this. I don't have the answers.
No.
I just had... I had an idea that made me feel better about something I was struggling with.
I'm pretty sure there's a quote from Haneke in an interview that I've heard where he literally just said, like, I don't have any answers. Answers are for stupid people and politicians.
That guy, man.
It's true, though. Because how can you be so fucking arrogant where you can write something where you can tell somebody how to live their life or how they should be treating any... Like, it's insane that you think that you, like, have any sort of conclusion.
Oh, man. And I was so shocked. I had a crew meeting when I was planning this film.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say his name.
Yeah.
But one of the crew members said... he just read the script and I was explaining the story to the crew just because I thought it would be great for us all to understand what we're putting all this effort into trying to convey. Not that I was explaining the themes, but we all did a table read.
Sure.
So we all know, locations.
Yeah.
Ideas.
Yeah.
And I had one of my crew members say, "Oh, Izac, and in the film there's a young man who has a girlfriend." Mm-hmm. And there's a conflict with the girlfriend. Mm-hmm. And someone said, "Oh, Izac, you're the dating coach. Hey, you're the dating coach? Is that why you wrote this?"
Yeah.
And I just remember being actually lost for words.
Yeah.
I should have kicked him out of the crew immediately. I should have done that because, guys, you just don't need that energy when you're trying to make a film. That's hard to make logistically. Also, it's
one thing for it to be a joke, and it's another thing for it to be just
an
like
actual jab.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not, I don't think I am.
Yeah.
I just think I have this issue within myself.
Yeah.
And this is how I'm trying to deal with it. I'm not writing a self-help book.
Yeah.
The film isn't a self-help book. The film's just a portrait of me. I should have kicked him out of the film. I was actually so shocked that he said it in front of the whole crew.
It's so disrespectful.
I couldn't believe it, and I couldn't believe it just showed me as well. It's like, oh, you just have no idea where I'm coming from.
Yeah. I think there are certain people who believe that movies can only be written in such a way where they have to have a moral to teach or a moralistic ending.
Yeah.
And I feel like you can tell these movies from about 5 minutes in.
Yeah.
It's like, because these people who have these morals that they want to teach you, they can't fucking help but say it every 5 fucking seconds.
Because they're so proud.
Right, because they're so happy they've figured out the secrets to life. And so it's just in their movie every 2 seconds. It's like, live your life this way.
Yeah.
Or it's like, and all of the time whenever it is in movies, it's always the most surface level bullshit. It's always just something as stupid as like, love good, family good. Or like...
You're shitting me.
But
what the fuck?
It's always that way.
Hold on, I gotta call my mom.
Yeah. But like, it's the same thing as like, as simple as like, every American screenplay that is shat out is the same, like, the same, like, there's like always these morals at the end of them that are just like, love is the answer.
Yeah.
Am I right? Relationships, and then it always ends with like, this relationship will never have any problems ever again.
Yeah.
Or like,
guys, they got married, that's it. Now they're happy.
Exactly. Or
they
like,
did it, they're married.
Yeah. Or the story is always like, these people, we need to make somebody feel bad for them because they need to have a reason for doing the things that they're doing. And the reason can't be revenge or vengeance or because they want to do it because they're like hedonistic people or because they have like a side to their personality that's dark, because nobody has that. They have to they always have to be motivated by like, I'm doing this for my family.
Absolutely.
Or I'm doing this for this, and like, so that you'll always see like these shitty movies where it's just like, what the motivation is like, oh, we just gave them 2 kids who we threw in for half a scene who were just there so that it's like, oh, he has family, now I care, and now I'm rooting for him. It's like, it's so fucking lazy. It's so fucking lazy and disrespectful. I fucking hate it.
And it's like, as you were saying, like, oh, this is the ending, now they're just good. It's like, you really think, it's like, do you know, what's that thing about history? It repeats itself. You think this guy isn't going to have this issue again?
Exactly.
Seriously?
But the movies are presented in such a way where like, no, they never will. It's all good forever now. There's like no moment of like self-awareness or self-reflection on the part of like the you have to write things, in my opinion, from the perspective of being within the characters.
Yeah.
Everything that I try to write without any objectivity. So let's say like my only method, I guess, that I have for writing, that's like a method, because people want a method, right? And their methods are like 3-act structures. My method is like, I have a problem and I can't articulate precisely what it is a lot of the time. Maybe sometimes, but most of the time not. I just know that there's some sort of problem. and I know it's there because I feel it. And so what I'm doing is taking myself through my attempt to unravel some of it, to understand some of it through a metaphor, and this metaphor is the screenplay. It's inherently a metaphor. And because I'm doing that step by step, what happens is that if an audience member watches it, if they're invested in it or if they care, I try to make it so that they have the opportunity to go through this as well, of like seeing these characters, or in a, I fucking hate this word, but I'm going to use it, in a meta sense of seeing the writer try to figure it out as the movie is unraveling, if that makes sense. That's like my only method of doing this. It's like I have a problem, I'm shooting to understand it, but I fucking never will. And so I'm going to like attempt to understand some of it here. And we'll see how far I get, and how deeply I'm able to attempt to unpack this, Yeah. Like that's my method. That it's not a structure. It's like that's what I'm trying to do that,
It's just
And the way in which you can do that in however way you think is fit. You can do that with sound elements. You can do that with character elements. You can do that with... It's not a forced thing. Like I just try to let the characters do what they do, and I try to write it. Part of the thing that this method lends itself to well for me is that I don't feel like I should ever be writing anything with like objectivity. It's like I don't try to write something as like the voice of God looking down on people, moving the chess pieces around. It's like, because like when you are in your life, which you are if you're listening to this, by the way, then you don't actually have any objectivity because you're trapped in your own head. You can attempt to look at things objectively, but the objectiveness is still coming through your perception and your perspective. So I try to write everything from the perspective of the characters without any other perspective. So I try to take perspective out in a way and just be in the characters and feel what they feel and see what they see. I try to do that and like write like what they say should be what that character would say in that scenario, not what they might like to say or can say or should say, what they would actually say. So you spin off little characters which are like little simplified versions of people, and that are you in a way because they have to be you because you wrote them. And then you try and see if they can have a conversation to work a thing out, I guess. And I try to I guess have my characters have conversations where they're talking about something that I find to be interesting. Maybe then they are finding it interesting because I'm interested in it, I guess, and I don't care too much if an audience is really interested in it. I find it really, people have been asking me forever, like, Bloom comes out, yeah, people are going to love it. And I just feel like, I don't care if people love it. I feel bad saying it because, like, I want to give people something that I feel like they are going to connect to and whatnot. But I sort of made it by the metrics of my taste. And I'm not saying I executed that to perfection, because I feel like where your taste is, what you might like to do, and what you're actually capable of executing are not going to line up. Then maybe they can if you really are really fucking awesome, but I feel like there's like maybe 10 directors ever who lived in that category, and maybe they achieved it twice in their whole career. But like it's like sort of suited to what I'm trying to do and to my taste, and I can't watch the movie properly because I fucking constructed it, right? So it's like impossible for me to like watch it like a viewer would watch a movie, like I'd watch anybody else's movie. But I try to, in that sense, I try to make it objective, in that like if I saw that in a movie, I would think that that's shit, so I remove it. It's basically what it is. It's like taking out all the stuff that I hate and just trying to put in the stuff that works for me, across everything, across like the sound, the dialogue, the shots, what characters are saying, the pacing of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I feel like my role as like a writer is mostly like a role as a writer, but then it's important that I am hypercritical so that I can tell the difference between a good idea and a bad idea, and an honest idea and a polluted idea. And then I feel like directing is just like being as honest to that screenplay and trying to execute that as well as I possibly can. Because when I go to set, the movie's made for me already. It's in my head and it's made. And sometimes it's on paper and it's made. It's like, this happens and then this happens. It's like, well, then you just have to tick those things off, and they better be
like
ticked off.
Checklist.
Yeah. And you can add little things here and there. We talked about that in like an acting episode, but like you have to just try and, let's say like your screenplay's at 100. in your head because it's ideal, right? It's perfect. And then you get a scene through and you're like, this one was 80. It's like, oh, fuck. And then the next one, it's like, oh, that one was 70. Shit. Can we reshoot that? Now it's at a 90. Great. And you just try and get it all to that standard that's there. But it's kind of made already. Also because I like pre-edit my movies in the sense that I know where I'm going to cut most of the time or how I'm going to shoot it and shit like that. Do you write for your direction?
Do I write for my...
Do you write knowing you're going to direct and then make specific choices because you know you're going to shoot something?
So far in my career, I've never written a screenplay with the plan of... Actually, no, that's a lie. I wrote Flesh and Ivory initially, and I wasn't going to direct it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow. Why'd you write it?
So the plan was because first of all, I had an assignment.
You're right. Yeah.
And I heard a cool idea from a friend of mine.
Oh, okay. So I'm obviously making a very stupid assumption right now, which is like, you were going to write it, not thinking anybody would ever direct it, as opposed to letting somebody else direct it.
I thought I was writing an assignment.
Right, just to write with nobody ever making it.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you.
And in those 10 weeks writing it for an assignment, that script was hot garbage.
Right. Yeah.
It sucked.
Shocker.
10 to 15 pages. Okay, I was trying to meet criteria.
Yeah.
I wanted to get a good mark.
Yeah.
And then I revisited it shortly afterwards. I picked that premise because I thought it could help me figure something out.
Mm-hmm.
But then I got caught up in trying to get it to reach a deadline and get a good mark.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came back to it and I realized that I hadn't figured out everything I wanted to figure out from that script yet.
Mm-hmm.
And the plan was in third year, I wanted to take a subject called feature film writing.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're doing that, that counts as 1 point for a major role on grad slate, which means you don't have to direct on grad slate.
Yeah.
You can just do one minor role and you still have all of your credit points to graduate.
Yeah.
And I was more concerned with becoming a writer than becoming a director at the time. And so my plan was, okay, I'm writing this script, which now that I've worked on it for a year, I think is good.
Uh-huh.
And I know a few directors who I would trust to direct this, and then they can direct it. I can be an on-set consultant,
right?
Which would be great.
So you really trusted other people to direct your thing?
I had one guy in mind,
okay,
and I really tried hard to convince him to direct it, and he said eventually he heard me talking about it, and he said, and this was all the way through grad slate pitching as well. I was still trying to convince this director to direct it, and he said, look, honestly, hearing you talk about this, he was like, why the heck are you not directing it?
Yeah.
Are you serious? Like, he said, why? This is so personal.
Yeah.
This really means a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, why are you not
smart man
directing this? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, you're probably right. Because I just wanted to, I wanted to take the feature film subject. That was the idea.
Right.
And then once I started, I always wrote it with shots in mind. There weren't always the shots that I landed on, but I wrote it with shots in mind while I was writing it. So to direct it hypothetically, because I knew it would be then transformed into a film. But then once I decided that I was going to direct it, then I really started writing it, because I thought, like, I always wanted it to be good.
Yeah.
But now I thought, okay, if there's anything that doesn't work out on the day, I'm the guy who now has to fix it. And obviously I wanted to write a great film for someone else to direct. But just knowing that that's going to be me there, there's just an added urgency to it.
Sure.
So yeah, I guess I have, but I changed and I directed it, and I'm really glad that I did. It was a great experience directing that, and I was really lucky to have a really good crew around me to support me in my first, big short.
Yeah. Could you ever let anybody else direct your stuff?
If I really liked them.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I probably could. I'm not going to say that I'm closed to it.
Yeah.
They would have to give me one hell of a fucking pitch.
I think I would say that I'm 99.9% closed to it.
Yeah. I'm not going to say I'm not going to say no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm probably, I don't know. I couldn't put it onto a percentage, but like yeah.
Because for me, I would have to write something that wasn't personal to me enough for me to direct it. I kind of feel like people tell their own stories best.
I think that, I don't know, there's circumstances where I've seen it done where I go, okay, that's fantastic. I love how that's worked out. Like, you know, Charlie Kaufman with Being John Malkovich in adaptation. He was just very close with Spike Jonze. Like, I don't need to tell you this, but maybe the audience doesn't know. Like, he was very close to Spike Jonze in the process, and he was an on-set consultant, but he didn't direct it. But I would still consider those films incredibly
they're amazing
successful.
Movies.
And personally to him, and you know, Charlie said that he's incredibly proud of the way that they've turned out, and he would work with Spike again.
Absolutely. And I bet there were tons of seriously in-depth conversations between Spike and Charlie about why things are in the screenplay and why they need to be shot a certain way and things like this. Like, it feels like there was a lot of mutual personal understanding put into those movies, whereas, like, I think Tarkovsky said this, but he's like, if a director doesn't write the script and is just the director, then he's just a mere illustrator. Which I feel like is kind of true. There's not many directors who just direct and don't write that I enjoy the work of or even have that much respect for. I think it's a skill. I definitely think directing is like its own skill set, but I think that there's a serious amount of crossover between in my skill set at least, between like my skill set in directing and writing and like even editing. I tried to explain this, but like to somebody who is not involved in movies, and I was like, because I said I wrote, direct, and edited a thing, and they were like, gee, that's a lot of different jobs. And I was like, no, it's sort of the same job. Because
it's just delivering a story.
Writing is, so you write a thing and then you direct it, and so I wouldn't let anybody else direct this thing that I have written, because as I'm writing it, I sort of write visually, so I can sort of see the shots as I write, and I don't want people fucking with my shots. And so, and the critical part of it's the same, in the sense that, like, I'm a critic when I write, and then my work as a director on set is like, I see myself as like an on-set critic as opposed to a director, in the sense that decisions I'm making I feel like are critical. So if I saw them in a movie and I thought a performance was not where I wanted it to be, I sort of would speak to the actor in such a way where I'm like trying to say things to them that would make me, as a watcher of the movie, think their performance was better. And it's not about yelling at actors or simulating your shit. It's like trying to get them to turn the thing into a place where if I saw it in a movie I would think that it was good acting, sort of thing. And I don't think I've ever had the experience really on a set where I was choosing the people where I would work with, where, like, you know, people are rude to actors, can just fuck off. And then the role of editor to me is just like rewriting again and redirecting again. Because sometimes you have to rewrite. Fortunately on Bloom I didn't really have to rewrite because it was pretty much fucking set in stone. I think I changed maybe 3% of the story structure, probably. Like, literally, like, where two scenes were, because something didn't line up, because I was stupid, I didn't think about it before I shot it, but I was able to fix it in the edit. And then you're a director again, because you have to redo all the pacing, kind of, and make it feel like there's a believable amount of space between what people are saying, I guess, if that makes sense. So do you think it's one job as well? Like, writing, directing, and editing? Do you treat that like a one job? Because I kind of do.
I think it is. Like, I wasn't the editor on Flesh and Ivory.
Sure.
But I sat in on every session that wasn't visual effects.
You were co-editor, but sort of complete co-editor.
I was there throughout the whole process. Right. So, but obviously full credit to Calvin Semi. Did a great job.
But it's useful to have somebody to bounce pacing off.
Absolutely. I wanted to be there. And it was great because Calvin, you know, challenges me on some of my ideas. And you're either going to figure out that they don't work, or you're going to figure out why they do. But you should always, you know, challenge yourself.
You want a good critic to be your co-editor.
Oh god, yeah, absolutely. So absolutely, it's all one job. It's all making a film. Not that it obviously takes one person to make a film, but to lead the charge on it. But it's tough, because at the same time, if I had someone who was a truly great director, and I really liked how they worked, and they had some great ideas about my screenplay, and they were also awesome in the way that we could communicate about the screenplay, you know, to the point where I could feel like this was going to work out, and maybe, let's just say, because of scheduling, I have to direct something else at the time. I'm not opposed to it. It's not something I'm looking for, but if it came up and it worked, you know?
I think no matter who was directing my material, I would be sitting in that editing room after the thing was shot if I wasn't on set, being like, fuck, I wish they moved that camera half a meter that way.
Yeah, right.
Fuck, I wish they had them say it this way or do it that way or directed it this way to get this thing out. It's like, my screenplay could end up in the hands of a director who would direct it better than I would direct it in the view of a lot of people. But I don't fucking care and I want to direct it.
Yeah.
I don't care. Like if it's gonna get fucked up, I want to be the one who takes personal responsibility for fucking it up.
Yeah.
How could, like, if somebody came to me with a screenplay that I wrote and I was somebody else, like, and I've had this happen where it's like a lot of people, I guess, have asked me to read their screenplays, and they're like, they're writers primarily, and they're like, oh, this will never get made, blah blah. It's like, you should fucking make it. I can tell this thing's like very personally important to you, and I think there are a lot of writers who feel like they're not confident in what they've written, let's say. And I never felt confident in what I had written until I felt confident in my ability to be a critic. Because once I was a good critic, I knew it was bad or good and why. Because I could say, I like that, I don't like that, and here's exactly why. It's like, and once I could do that for myself and be honest about the fact that I can do that for myself, then I have the authority now, once I've done that, to actually be able to direct or write anything. Because now I can make critical decisions. I know how to think critically, and now I can actually do that. I hope to get better at that. But I sort of felt like I could look at a movie, say I like this and I didn't like this. That took about 7 years of like studying movies. So when I was like, I don't know, maybe like 17, I could be like, I like that or I don't like that, but I couldn't tell you why. I might have known why sometimes subconsciously, but I couldn't articulate it. And then it took me another like 3 years on top of that to be able to articulate that. And so now if somebody asks me why I liked something about a movie or why I didn't, I feel like I can give them a well-reasoned explanation as to why or why not for me, personally. In a way that's not just an argument that's motivated by emotion, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I try to explain why the emotion didn't come through for me or something like that, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that makes total sense.
Yeah. And I don't feel like I could direct without that either.
Yeah, God no.
Because how can I make any decision?
Yeah, how can you... Yeah, exactly. You're watching the film happen in real time.
Yeah.
You know, more or less.
Yeah.
It's like, who's to say?
Yeah.
Whether that's a good or bad take.
Yes.
And then now also, what's the direction?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me. I think, I don't know. I don't want to say, and especially, it might be the case that we're on a podcast now, and I just don't want to put the opportunity to bed without having thought about it.
I'm not putting it to bed permanently. I'm just saying, like, because there might be something I write in the future where I feel like, yeah, maybe somebody else should do this. But it has not occurred to me yet.
Yeah.
Also, like, fucking everything, like, you know, I hate this idea that people have where they can't, like, change their opinions. It's like, talk to me in 10 years, 5 years. Maybe I'll feel like everything I've just said in the last hour to however long we've been here is just bullshit.
Yeah.
And I've totally changed my mind. Like, it's totally a fair thing. And, you know, people act like that's, like, inconsistency of character. It's like, well, maybe it's developed character.
Yeah, exactly. Jesus. That's one of my pet peeves, is like, oh, you're not the same as you were. I would fucking hope not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh my God, do you think I've learned nothing?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I have that from time to time. It's like, I'm not going to name names again, but I've been in circumstances where it's like, oh, you're making films now. You know, I thought you used to play sport. And it's like, what the
I'm different now.
Seriously?
Yeah. And it's worth saying...
That really annoys me a lot.
It's worth saying you can develop in a negative sense as well.
Absolutely.
Like, I don't want to name names, but I definitely feel like there are some directors who were excellent 30 years ago and who now are not. And Izac, I think, knows some of the names that I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
But I think there are definitely certain directors who just fucking give up.
Yeah.
Writers who just give up. They're just like, fuck it. I don't care anymore.
I made a certain standard, and now, that's one thing that I just hope I never fall into it. It's
I don't know if it's ego or not caring. You know what I mean?
It's gotta be a combination of...
Yeah.
Like, it has to be both. I feel like I get the best products when I'm really, really acutely aware of the fact that if I don't keep my hands on the wheel, this will fail.
Yeah.
You know?
No great piece of art ever was made by somebody casually doing it.
Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
So even if I keep that approach, and hypothetically, let's just say I've made a bunch of films,
Mm-hmm.
and they're all great films.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I hope that's the case. If even when I get to that point, it's the idea where it's like, okay, now that I've made all these great films, surely I can't help but make a great film. It's like,
yes,
no.
Exactly. Yeah.
No. I hope that I always remember that I can't help but make a bad film.
Yeah.
There needs to be someone else has to be in the room. You, and I'm not talking about another human being. I mean, there needs to be another presence in me that's like, is this shit?
Yeah.
You should really think about whether this is dog shit or not.
Yeah.
You know, and if it isn't, tell me why. And if it is, tell me why. If you've had such a successful career in your first 5 years, and all you have is just everyone telling you how great you are, how great you are, how great you are, you know, might happen more for some people, might happen less for some people, but that voice is going to get quiet, or it's going to get, you know, louder because maybe you're aware that this might have this effect.
Yeah. You know, the debut or sophomore album argument, where it's like, the debut album's always the best, or the sophomore album's always the best because they just needed one album to get refined, and then the second one came and it was perfect, or the first one was the best because that's what it was. And then there's like never that same reach of an artistic peak ever again. And maybe it's because they never had to dig in that much ever again, because once the success comes, there's nothing to question.
Yeah.
I guess is a good way to put it.
It's an interesting thing because I'm just not going to name any artists.
Yes, let's not do that.
That's what a slippery slope that is.
Yeah,
but you know, if you're early on in your career and that debut album, it becomes a classic.
Yeah.
It's a masterpiece.
Yeah.
It is a very reasonable human being thing to think, oh, I've done it.
Sure.
Because we should all be so lucky as to make one masterpiece
nobody else
in our lifetime.
Yeah, like how many people have done this?
Exactly, right? It would be, it's such a reasonable thought, but it's just not, it's not one that I want to have, because I intend to be making films for a long time, and it's, you know, I'm not thinking about things just so I can make one and then call it.
Yeah. I feel like there may be some people who, the reason those albums come out so well, those like initial ones, is like because they've lived their life for so long and they've put so much content into it that they've sort of put their whole life into the one thing.
Yeah.
And it's really raw and charged and emotional and like really honest. And then they try and do it again.
Yeah.
But there's nothing else to say because they said it all. So there's like a band like called Minor Threat, for people who know, one of the best punk bands ever. And they just stopped because they said that they don't have anything else to say. Like, we'll go until we have anything else to say, and they stopped. And their discography is fucking perfect. And like, they wrote some of the best punk songs.
And it's like a Neutral Milk Hotel.
Yeah, man. It took them one album to get it. The Avery Island album's like, you know, I think it's a pretty cool album. But then that's it. And for people who know what and Jeff Mangum knew it was it, if you've heard that album, and you know why. So that's kind of what it was. If I ever get to a place where I don't feel like I need to write anything, I would like to not write anything anymore. Yeah. Because it's not serving anybody.
Yeah, it's like, what are you going to write?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Maybe if you are not interested in figuring anything out, then you shouldn't write anything. Yeah. So, like, in my opinion, Mika Haneke, whatever way you want to say his name, I don't think that the man has had any drop-off in quality since he started. He started great. He's still putting out great movies. Yeah. And I don't think there's, like, a noticeable... I think some are better than others. But I don't think he made like really anything that was like even his worst movie is still like really, really, really good, and then everything else is fucking great. Yeah. or incredible, extraordinary. Some of his, like, he's made some of the best movies in my opinion like ever, and he has like 4 or 5 of them. Like, anyhow,
it's the same with Kaufman as well.
Yeah, it's the same with Kaufman. Like, every fucking thing that Charlie Kaufman puts out just is
all the way from John Malkovich to I'm Thinking of Ending Things.
And they're always... So people always say that, like, I hate this word, but I guess I'm going to use it. auteurs do nothing but repeat themselves, right? There's like that's an argument that's commonly made. And Haneke brought this up when he wrote a beautiful review of Alcazar Balthazar, which is one of my favorite movies, and I think his favorite movie. And he said, or I think Bresson even said this, or maybe he said this. He quotes a lot of Bresson in his writing of that critique. But Bresson said, like, or maybe he said, I can't remember who said it. I'm really bad that I can't remember. But he said these films, but that auteurs make, they're always the one piece of criticism they always get is you're just saying the same thing over and over again. It's like, well, that's what it is to be addicted to truth.
Yeah. Wow.
Because you just have to keep poking it. You know, like all of Haneke's films are like in some way a reaction to the media and the sort of media that he doesn't like. But he keeps hammering down on the same fucking point over and over and over again. He's making similar points over and over again, but the point's so broad, it's like media as a whole. It's like, well, shit, you can talk about media for 10 lifetimes, you know what I mean? They're always hyper-specific movies, and they're always incredibly dense movies. It's like media, what's the fallout? When Haneke's like, well, I got about 20 different movies to show you all the different things that happen. That's the fallout. In the same way that Bergman writes a movie and he's like, well, you know, life's really tough and love's complicated and death sucks. Gotcha. He's like, well, I got like 20 movies in me. Let's go. Yeah. And I would have done more if I didn't die, sort of thing. And it's the same way, it's like, even Kubrick, who I love, who is famously a director, I think said himself that he wasn't that good of a writer. He was a fantastic critic. He knew when words were bad and words were good. Maybe he couldn't write them originally, but he could tell them from books, which in a sense is writing. You know, you picture the material that moved him, and then he, with his genius way of presentation, presented it extremely well, in my opinion. Over and over and over again he did that. Because he only made films when he felt like they were important enough for him to make. He famously would go through books and just throw them against walls because he was 10 pages in and is not moved. So he just picked the thing that moved him, you know. There's a great audio clip of him saying, people ask you why you chose the material you chose. It's like, I don't know. It's like, why'd you marry your wife?
Yeah.
It's like, you don't always know, you don't always know why it does, but the important thing is that it does.
Yeah.
And then you do your best to explore that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the goal, isn't it? I guess. Is to have one of those careers.
Yeah, I think consistency is the thing.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any single director's career where it's like, I wish they had that career, because I want my own thing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But just to be able to continuously.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about it when you said, if I think I don't have anything to write about or any issues to write about, I'll stop writing.
Yeah.
And my first thought to that was, oh, okay, well, you should write about denial.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm perfect.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah,
okay,
you sure about
great.
that? Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk about denial. We can start there. Yeah.
I think there's something, to be fair, to be said for being content.
Yeah.
But there's also a thing, just because you're content, that doesn't make everything in the world that you're mad about go away.
Yeah.
Haneke's obviously very fucking annoyed by the media, and some of his movies feel like they're a bit more personal, even if I don't know his life, I think, to bring it back to Amour, he had said, this was a situation that came up in my life through looking at my friends and seeing people die or something like that. People around his age were going through that sort of a thing. And he said, and one day I'm going to die too, and so I thought I would write about it. So that one feels like it's less a reaction to the media, which he's so pissed off by, and more of a story about dealing with death and things like this. But all his stories, even if media is the thing that sets them off, they all end up being about guilt and shame. All of them. They're all about that. And you can always find those characters in his movies who don't know how to feel about what they're going through, and who are just unfairly put through shit. But that's what everybody's life experience is, right?
Yeah. If you've already banked one masterpiece.
Yes, that's what he said. Yeah.
It's very, very easy to hop off. And this is coming from Noah and I, who have obviously clearly both banked multiple masterpieces at 22.
Just endless check out our filmographies, everybody.
Our filmography is just, it's a laundry list.
Man, 80 palm doors later, we're here to give you guys our wisdom. So what happened is that I think we reached the end of one of the points that we were trying to make in our conversation.
Yes.
I think, which is why we checked the laptop to see if it's still recording anyhow. It's a very abstract and weird thing to talk about when you talk about writing, because it's like, well, I sort of have my process, and like I feel like going into it in like an immense amount of detail as to like exactly what I do seems like a logistical problem that nobody would be interested in listening to, because it's like, what do I even say? Like, I make some tables, and then I compare my old ideas to my new ones in drafts, right? But like, I'm not explaining that shit. That's boring as fuck. Also, it's not that important. Like, you do whatever you want to do.
Do what works for you guys. That's the one piece of advice that we think is worthwhile sharing.
Yeah, because you can't listen to everybody.
No,
they're not. You shouldn't either. But like, there's just so many different ways of working on this type of shit.
Oh man,
is there even enough material to do another one of these where we talk about writing? Because I don't actually feel like we talked about writing. I think we talked about Eraserhead.
We talked about Eraserhead and Johto for a solid hour of that.
Yeah, and then we
talked about, you asked me about the difference in my approach between writing Flesh and Ivory and my new film. And I talked about my Flesh and Ivory approach, but I don't know if I talked about... I think I alluded to the difference between that and the new film.
I did ask you about that.
Yeah. So, well, pretty much, I think I kind of covered it, because the setup for how I was talking about Flesh and Ivory was just to juxtapose. Because it is actually quite... I've consciously made a decision to take a different approach.
Right. So you didn't just fall into it. You were like, no, I'm writing this differently.
Yeah, because I knew what my limitations were.
So you made like a proper conscious decision to change not only what you're going to write, but the way in which you go about writing it.
Yeah.
So what parts of your old method did you like throw out and replace or change or just leave behind entirely?
Yeah. So I decided that things like the ending, I wasn't going to write an ending and try and meet it. I was going to try and piece it together as I got there.
Gotcha.
That was the biggest one. Because I feel like I got too invested in an ending that I thought of quite early on in the process.
Yeah, that's right.
And then my writing got a bit rigid, trying to cater for that ending rather than having an ending that caters for the scenes before.
Yeah, having to rush characters to conclusions, I think you'd said.
Yeah, massive. And that was, obviously 15-page limit on the university assignment. What can you do? But, I should have just written longer and just taken a bad mark in hindsight. But
they wouldn't have let you shoot it then, though.
No. Yeah. So you do what you can. But this new one, I picked a premise where I could be incredibly flexible with the way in which I approach the writing. So I wanted to, without going into it too much, I wanted to have a format in which my main character could talk to a lot of different people. And because these people are unrelated, they're all strangers to each other outside of needing the service of the main character, they don't have to appear in a particular order immediately, at least in the planning. So what that allowed me to do is I've just written now a lot of conversations that I thought of between this character and different kinds of interesting people that I've had ideas for.
Sure.
So now it's going to be a matter of finding why I've found those conversations interesting, what I think they could mean to the main character as I start sequencing them, and then finding out what the ending is, and why these have to be placed together in a film.
Are you trying to find a reason for the conversations to all fit together in like a cohesive way, if that makes sense? Like there's a reason for the next conversation and a reason for the next one? Or are you just happy to sort of like have a character who like has just conversations that aren't related?
I'm happy for him to have conversations that aren't related.
Okay, yeah.
I think the through line is obviously him, because he's in all the conversations.
Sure.
And I don't want to go into it too much.
Yeah, don't.
But I think it's interesting that obviously we have a lot of different sides to ourselves, and in meeting different people and talking to different people, sometimes we get to show different sides to people.
Yeah, to ourselves, you mean?
To ourselves and
Yeah.
to the people that we meet.
Yeah. You
You
show
know?
different sides of yourself to different people you talk
Yeah.
to.
So, and this is, I don't even know if I want to keep that in, because that's not the fucking core thematic statement for my film.
Well, we can talk a little
it's-
bit about how we fucking don't like core thematic statements.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's sort of... I might have brought that up when I talked about people going in with like morals and lessons.
Yeah.
It's like I feel the same way about a core thematic statement, which is something that was like you were told to write in uni as well.
Yeah, which is...
It's like, if I had a core thematic statement, I wouldn't write this.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't need to.
Yeah.
I just write a fucking core thematic statement.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
There's no point in writing the story if you
Yeah.
know what the core thematic statement is.
Exactly.
It's like, you completely, like, you're assuming a thing that's not there.
Yeah.
And then telling me to write it. It's like, what's the moral? It's like,
It's like, I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it's I think it's worth mentioning as well, obviously. So that idea of a conversation that I would have with my mum is very different to a conversation I would have with you.
Yeah.
That is very different to a conversation I might have with someone who is a stranger at the store.
Sure.
So it's people are different with different people. This is nothing new.
No.
But I like that.
Yeah.
And it's something that I wanted to investigate
Yeah.
in my screenplay.
Yeah. I really don't feel like that's like dishonest, that people are different to different people.
No, not
there's
at
just
all.
certain things that you wouldn't talk to certain people about
Yeah.
for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But that doesn't feel like it's dishonest.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have this. I've had people I know be like, "Why do you talk to so and so differently than you talk to me?"
Yeah.
And it's like, well, so and so is like maybe really going through something.
Sure.
Maybe that's why I'm really nice to them.
Sure.
Maybe you were a dick a week ago. Maybe
Yes.
that's why I'm a little jaded to you.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like I'm not just pulling out names out of a hat
Sure.
and then acting a particular way.
Sure. Maybe it's because I just don't know you very well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
would you believe it? I have more than one side to me.
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
always feel happy all the time.
Yeah.
And so I don't feel like talking like that.
Yeah.
So I had a premise, pretty much I had a premise where you could talk to lots of different people in lots of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I could be flexible with the order within which they appear, but getting down to the later stages of writing, now I'm figuring out what order will these scenes appear that will best serve the film.
Yeah.
Because I also liked that I had a formula, well, not a formula, it's a non-formula, just a format that was so flexible, because I really had no idea what a moral was with this story.
Yeah.
I just liked seeing someone who was able to talk to so many different people and hear like a lot of different stories. I figured I could tackle things that I was feeling, by just having someone walk into the space.
Yeah.
So rather than having it all run through people who knew each other, which was what Flesh and Ivory is about.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the difference. And I wrote a lot of scenes with people talking to different people, and it's not always the same protagonist, but I started there. I wrote scenes that I thought were interesting to me,
Yeah.
and now I'm figuring out why they all mean something in the scheme of a film,
Sure.
rather than knowing the ending and writing scenes to meet that ending.
Yeah.
I'm keen to figure out what the ending is. I figured out what the opening scene was fucking yesterday.
Nice. Yeah. And who knows if that will stay your opening
I could
scene.
have a clue. Yeah, it works for now.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's the difference. Yeah, and it's taking me a lot longer to write as
Of
a
course.
result, but
Of course.
who cares?
Yeah.
I'm having a lot more fun writing it as well.
Yeah. That's cool. Good stuff. Are you writing long conversations?
They're
Different, all
long,
different
long,
lengths.
short.
Yeah. Cool.
You know,
That's cool.
polite, impolite.
Yeah.
Yeah, just depends. It doesn't even, some of these conversations don't even take place on the same day. They might not even
Sure.
be with the same protagonist, but I'm pulling it all together.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what the protagonist is from all these things that I'm realizing he does when he talks to different people and why he reacts with people. And obviously, I am not the protagonist, but because he's the through line throughout the film and I'm the writer, these ideas are coming from me. Spoiler alert, I'm the writer. The ideas are coming from my head, but I'm not him.
Yeah.
I feel like that's convoluted and confusing.
No, it's... I don't think that's a thing that is understood well. Maybe I feel that way because this is like my experience of it.
Yeah.
But like, there was definitely an attitude of Bloom where I felt like people were trying to tiptoe around asking me personal questions about my life in the sense that they might relate to things that are happening in the story, because they don't want to like bring something up that's sensitive. But people will, I think, commonly assume, and to some extent they can assume this because I think there are some writers who do this, where it's just like, oh, the main character in the story is just you. And then
there's plenty of that.
But the problem, I think, with if you're writing like that is that, like, well, if the main character is you can do one of two things, which is all the other characters are other people in your life that you're just sticking right on the page. Because if you're willing to do it to yourself, you know, some people are willing to do it to themselves, but not other people, but some people aren't, so they do that. Or what you end up doing is, like, all the other characters end up being really cheap caricature type things that don't really feel like people, because they just, the writers who do this, where their lead character is them, it's like sometimes it's just like they don't take the time to consider where everybody else is coming from, sort of thing, if that makes sense. And you know, we're saying one of my favorite writers is Kafka. A lot of his characters are called K for obvious reasons. And I never have felt in reading a Kafka book like any of the other people are cheap caricatures. Sometimes they're comedic caricatures, and Kafka's taking the piss, and that seems to work really, really well. But because the books seem to be open about the fact that they're taking a piss, they're not like distilled, shallow sort of shells of characters. Sometimes it's having a caricature in a comedic way, even if it's Kafka and it's like a black comedic way, is that you can blow something up so big in order to make people realize things about it, or something like that, or to show people how ludicrous it is, if that makes sense. But I've never felt in reading one of his books that he's not giving the antagonists of the story their reasons for being antagonistic. And I don't think Kafka ever really presents a protagonist who's completely ideal, and like I never get the sense in reading his stuff that he is arrogant or self-righteous. I always feel like he is very self-critical in reading his stuff.
He has that story. What's the story about? It's a short story, and we talked about it a while ago. He has that line where he says, I'm walking on this sidewalk and I move with the same pace.
Yeah, I think it was a diary entry.
Yeah. It's like this side of the street, this.
Yeah.
And I remember you and I had literally two polar opposite interpretations of the story.
Yeah.
I took it as, he's in harmony with his surroundings.
Yeah.
Is what I got from it.
Yeah.
And then you got from it the fact that there is no individuality.
Yeah.
To the point where even when he's sitting at home, he has to look out the window to other people.
Yeah.
You know, to still see what they're doing.
Yeah.
So he can know what he's doing inside his own home.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I really like that with him. It's great. I couldn't, because I'd read the story, but it's like a page and a half.
Yeah.
I read the story a bunch, and I felt really good reading it.
Yeah.
Because I really thought he was, I projected.
Yeah.
He's just so great with stating things as a matter of fact.
Sure.
Without going into it.
Yeah.
So you can put what you want onto it.
Kafka's writing always feels like it's clean and it's clear and it doesn't shy away. It's not like using flowery language in order to communicate an emotion.
Yeah.
It's like very cutting, and he just sort of states things as they are. But the things that he is stating are so interesting that you just can't help but be drawn into it.
Yeah.
It's kind of simple, and there's no attempting to use words in order to draw an emotion out of you. It's just, the emotion is just there.
Yeah.
Because it's so raw.
It's so easy to trust the story because it's really not trying to pull any tricks on you.
To bring this back to movies.
Yeah.
And to Tanaki and Bresson and these other people. So like, you could sort of credit Bresson to some extent with inventing like a dirty shot, basically, meaning like he tried to make images that weren't good looking, like not framed well, or like not that they're not framed well. They're always technically.
Yeah, they're not framed conventionally.
They're not framed to construct a frame that looks nice. The reason that they are framed that way is so that you only see what is necessary for you to see in order to get the story across. And there's no attempt to make it look good. It's just there to get the story across, basically. And so, yeah, he's just said, like, he's quoted as saying, I'm not going to remember the quotes, but like, the gist of it being that if you present the thing how it is, in a almost mechanical way, the emotion can't help but come out of that, because you're not forcing it to come out of that. And Bresson always cast people who weren't actors and rejected people who were actors, because, and sometimes, you know, it works sometimes and sometimes doesn't work so well. But one of the reasons he did it was because those people didn't have to act. They just had to be themselves. Yeah. And so Haneke's made this argument before, which is like, if you're an actor and you're portraying an emotion that you're not going through or that you haven't been through and making entertainment out of that, then you're robbing the experience of people who are actually suffering while they're going through that emotion, because people find it entertaining to watch people go through stuff. But that is disrespectful to the people who are actually going through that stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's a fine line to cross, because you have to figure out if every movie that you're watching, if you feel like they're exploiting like something emotional in order to get a reaction out of you, or if they're doing it earnestly. And so you make that choice every time you watch a movie, like, to see if whether you think it's genuine or not, I would say.
Yeah.
So Haneke's big on attempting not to use like filmic trickery to get an emotion out of you. And
like spelling out a scenario to you. Like,
for
example, you know, if there's an object that has some significance and he wants you to pay attention to it, he'll be clever with blocking.
Yeah.
You know, or he'll give direction.
Right. It seems like sometimes
to place significance on an object rather than cutting away to a crash zoom of an object.
Exactly. Yeah. It also seems like he's just writing his screenplays away from having to do close-ups of things.
Yeah.
Which is totally fair and a good way to do it. Yeah, his stuff always feels very clean and controlled. Like, well-reasoned, like he's thought about it. I always feel like he's treating his actors and the story with respect, you know? And the audience as well. It's just like, here's the thing, what do you think about this? As opposed to like a movie presenting a thing as like, well, this is bad. We're going to tell you why it's bad, and then explain to you why we told you that it was bad.
Yeah. And then we can all go home the wiser.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That stuff always comes off as demeaning, I think.
Yeah. Something that I wanted to ask, actually, Noah. So you've made, it's almost finished post-production,
sure.
your first feature film.
Sure.
And you're in the final stages of writing your second feature film, which I won't name the title of, because I don't even know if that's going to be it. But what are some things that you learned in your first experience writing a feature film, and what are your ideas heading into writing the second?
Now that I have better relationships with some actors who I'm going to work with again, I have more confidence in writing scenes that ask more of them. By that I mean, I can write things that I feel like are going to be harder for them to act, and I have some more confidence that they're going to be able to do that. Not that they couldn't have before. I'm not saying that they have gotten better at acting over the last 3 years.
You're just more comfortable.
Yeah, it was a first film, and so I needed to have it be reliable, I guess. And so I wrote things in a very specific way to do that. I don't want to reveal what I've sort of done in order to try and do that. But I guess I have permitted myself to take more risks, because I feel like it's less risky that the risks will end up being bad. I feel like I have worked out to some extent how to allow characters to be a bit more opinionated and have that not feel like, as I never want it to feel like it's just like me talking through a character, because I feel like that's shit.
Yeah, it's propaganda at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Because it has to come from them, you know, their view on things. But I think people do go on rants, a lot, and me included, obviously. And so for them to rant, to let them just go and do that, that's one of the things that I think I've changed. Yeah, I've allowed the screenplays to be more openly emotional at the ends of the spectrum, not so controlled, I guess. Those aren't very good answers, I don't think, as to like what's changed or how I've changed it.
Yeah. It sounds like your directing approach, obviously writing leads into directing.
Yeah, it's sort of like one thing of it.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like I've changed.
Yeah.
That's been most dramatic, I guess. But I'm probably not thinking of things that you're thinking of that I've changed, that I don't know that I've changed.
I'll try and be more specific.
Yeah.
So, was there anything, looking back in the edit at Bloom, that you think you could have improved, or just things that you would like to do differently back in the writing process, as far as pacing, as far as conveying information?
Yeah.
Not that I see like issues with Bloom, but just things that you would like to do another way. I don't think that's not even specific.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. Do you kind of
know what I mean? Maybe.
Okay.
I'm going to try and give you an answer, and you can see if you think it's reasonable.
Sounds good.
Yeah, there was a scene in Bloom that I was unsatisfied with on my writing's part, and it was only one scene, and there were two. One of them I took out of the film because it was unnecessary, and I felt like it was necessary when I wrote it.
A scene that we shot.
Yeah, that I took out.
You've completely cut out.
Yeah. Do you not remember what we shot?
I completely...
That's funny. Okay.
I missed this when I was watching it.
Well, I'll say this after the podcast. And then there was one that I still am not entirely sure what I did wrong, but I didn't do it well enough. It wasn't done well enough for me to be like, that was done properly, probably. I couldn't really figure out how to write that scene when I was writing. And so my solution was to like sort of write an anti-scene.
I see. Okay.
And that felt like a good way to end it. Not end the movie, it's not like the last scene of the movie or anything. But it almost worked. I think it almost worked for multiple reasons.
Yeah. I felt this way with Flesh and Ivory.
Okay.
I was like, shit, missed it by that much.
Yeah.
Like it was like, it's not painfully bad, but it wasn't. I don't feel like this scene's going to stick out to anybody who sees the movie, by the way. But it's just going to stick out to me as something that's like personally dissatisfying. Yeah. From my standpoint as a writer. And I don't feel like there's one of those scenes in this new thing that I'm writing. I feel like all the scenes are sort of necessary to some extent in that. That's not a good thing to say about a thing you're writing. They're necessary to some extent. But like I feel like every scene's necessary to some extent. You cut everything out at some point. There's just a lot of things that are said, and you have to just keep a balance of what you think is... is it justifiable that these people talk so much? Yeah. And then my sort of response is like, is it justifiable that anybody talks that much? It's like, does it need to be in the movie or not? It's like, well, it feels right. That's a really bad answer as well, and that I got to think of a good answer for this question. No. As to like how I've changed, like my writing and stuff. It's I can't pinpoint it, because to me there aren't, there aren't things that are like, oh, this needs to be fixed from Bloom. I don't feel that way about anything.
Yeah, I don't really feel that way.
I was just curious. Obviously, you've now, as a filmmaker, you have one feature under your belt. Yeah. Which is more than I can say. Like, I guess just how do you feel heading into your second feature? Fuck writing. How do you feel heading into pre-production?
I feel worried about the things that I don't know.
Yeah.
But they're mostly things about casting and production things and budget things. As for the story, I feel pretty good about the story, and I don't really feel like there are elements about the story I want to change. I don't know how this story is going to go over. I am satisfied with what I've written.
Do you care how it goes over?
Not really. I've allowed myself to remain less focused on what I thought the story should be about, and have let it become what the people in the story need to do and are doing. Because I was trying to tell one story when I went in, and it didn't end up being that story anymore. So I sort of... The characters, the people that I wrote, got in my way of telling the story that I wanted to tell.
Don't you hate it when that happens?
But they do that sometimes, and I just had to let them do that. So maybe someday I'll figure out how to tell the story that I was trying to tell. I might try and tell it again, and then another thing will get in the way. But I think that's the way.
Yeah.
Just let it interrupt itself and spiral off. So I'm comfortable with this screenplay, and I wish I could say that I cared about how it was going to go over, but I don't really care.
Fair enough.
I don't feel nervous about directing it. I feel nervous about production. Yeah.
Yeah. So like securing locations and getting
all the logistics that I hate to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just want to give a big shout out to Jackson Canaris.
Jackson, the bloody savior of my film career.
Yeah, that's it. Likewise.
Yeah.
Noah and I can sit here and talk for hours, but Jackson is the guy who
makes everything happen.
Makes it happen, literally.
And takes all the stress off my shoulders so he can deal with it. Yeah. Yeah, I don't really feel like my writing has changed that much. I feel like I've developed my taste, and the development of my taste has allowed me to write a story that is different, and spending enough time with the story has allowed the story to be more in line with my taste, which is forever sort of moving, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I really, at the end of the day, what I sort of feel like is like, I've been working on this thing long enough. You can write one thing forever, really, and just keep changing it over and over and over again. But this might be the point where it's just like, practically in my life, it's time to make another movie, so I'll stop here and put this one out. Because you can just add to shit forever. And I don't really want to make a 4-hour movie. Yeah. I'm not really interested in doing that right now. So
that sounds good.
Yeah.
Do you have, in this film, so Bloom, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of the things that were said on the day in Bloom were as written in the script.
Yeah, nearly all of it.
Nearly all of it.
Yeah.
Is that the same case with the new film?
In this film, I will probably be even more picky as to what ends up being said.
Right.
Part of that's I'm hoping a time thing. I hope I have a little bit more time. Part of that is being comfortable enough with actors to be confident enough to them to correct them on what they're saying. Because Bloom had to keep moving and I couldn't stop a set. And so if a few things fell to the wayside here and there because of the time constraints, you just sort of have to let them fall. Yeah, I think I will attempt to be more specific about things. And I think in doing that, I will actually be more open to people doing some improvisations, because once I have serious confidence in the fact that what I think I want there is there, then I will be more open to it being changed, as opposed to not getting the whole thing down and then having to deal with change.
Yeah, and just looking for that one print on the day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my concern, is like I've now written a story that I feel like is more hyper-specific in terms of like it's more wordy, and it's more there's more scenes of like large emotions, I guess, and I need to make sure that both those things are executed properly for the story to work, because I've sort of written it in such a way where the story is somewhat dependent on that. If they don't come through, I think I'll still get the point across, but I don't think that it will... I don't know that it's going to serve the characters justice, if that makes sense. So it's going to be harder for actors this time, I think. And a bit harder for me, too. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what's changed. It's like I'm more open to being less worried. That's it. That's really what's changed. Yeah.
Yeah. Once you get your version that's...
Well, I mean in general, because saying some of this is like some things I don't want to say because it will reveal some things that I did in Bloom to do things a certain way, and like I'd rather not like open the curtain and like show how I did things, if that makes sense. But this film's more demanding from actors, and when you don't know actors that well and you haven't worked with them that well, you try not to write a script that demands too much of them, if that makes sense. But when you know them a bit more, you feel like you sort of can demand more of them, or like attempt to get more out of them, sort of thing. And so that's what this script is. So it's more scary for me because they could not do that. That's the main thing that's changed in the writing.
Yeah, that's really cool.
We hope so. We hope it will be okay. Yeah.
I don't have a follow-up question.
Okay, that's cool. Are you finding that the more you write, the more open you are to putting strange things in your movies, or to taking more risks where you know they might not pay off?
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially with kind of how I'm approaching the new film.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's going to be scenes where if things really don't work out,
yeah,
I can cut them, and if it's really just one interaction,
yeah,
it can be in the abyss.
Genius, brilliant. That's great.
You know, I can put it right in the bin.
Yeah, yeah, and not worry.
Yeah,
yeah.
Because I've got some. What I really like is the kind of. I feel like such a tosser talking about it because I keep saying
we've been talking about ourselves for 4 hours. We're both huge tosspots. Let's bite the bullet.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, here we go. The premise that I've not come up with, but a thing that I think I wanted to turn into the script. It wasn't appealing to me because I thought I could present an idea morally. It was very appealing to me because literally purely out of how flexible it was to me.
Sure.
As a writer-director.
Yeah.
I'm just realizing it the more I talk about it. I was really put off by the fact that I wrote myself in so tightly on my short film.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah,
I found myself I've gone the opposite way.
Yeah, that's great.
Which feels really good.
Yeah.
So yeah, you best believe a consequence of that, I've written a lot of things that I really don't know if they will work.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I'll find, a role or an actor to play particular roles.
Yeah.
How I think it should come out.
Yeah.
Or a way in which it could come out where it could work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually feel supremely confident with this one because, just the way in which it works,
mm-hmm.
it's malleable.
That's great.
And for the first time as well, I've been looking forward to this, is I really wanted to try improvising with my actors
mm-hmm.
on the set
mm-hmm.
as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I can do this because just the conversations are highly malleable.
Yeah.
It's not like things are being referred back to every 2 seconds.
Gotcha.
And I'm also not shooting any one-ers in this film. So
good stuff.
I can edit it how I feel.
Nice.
And it'll be shot reverse.
Yep.
Conversations.
Yep.
Or a wide
mm-hmm.
that I can just cut into with a shot close up.
Nice. Yeah.
So yeah, I feel more confidence, and I also feel a lot more confidence as a director.
Nice. Being
able to judge a performance and whether I like it more.
Yep.
I feel like I've got a lot more confidence than last time.
Mm-hmm.
And my circle of, not my circle, but the actors, the group of actors that I know that I really like and that I really look forward to working with has grown a bit in the past year or so. So I've got absolute faith in those guys. And like you were saying as well, I've become closer with the actors that I already knew. So I feel much more comfortable asking them to do things. And I've heard about things that they want to try with characters heading into the future. Not characters that are in my film, but just different types of people they want to play at some point.
Uh-huh.
So I know what they're naturally interested in, which is great because I know that, as well as obviously just wanting to work on this film, they're going to have a personal interest in trying out something that they've been interested in.
Right, so you're writing things specifically for actors?
Sometimes,
yeah. Cool.
In scenes.
Yeah.
Like I have room to do that.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah, that's cool.
And even if we don't have that on the day, I'll just say, what if we've got it?
Yeah.
Why don't you try it like this? Because if this is dog shit, we can put this in the bin. And only like the 10 people in this room are gonna know. And none of us care.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel much better. I'm actually very excited.
Awesome.
To, keep the ball rolling on this script.
Good stuff.
For sure. I don't know. I can't wait. It's great.
Is that enough?
Mum, can I go home?
That's all of them done. So that concludes
this big mini-series.
About nothing, really.
Yeah, it started out about writing.
Yeah.
If you're wondering why we have so many tangents, I don't want to hear a goddamn complaint. Guys, we've been here from 10 a.m. and it's now almost 7 p.m. We are on our way out.
We are on our way out in every conceivable way.
We hope that you found this interesting.
Yeah, we hope this was at some point during this.
We hope this
useful.
Was helpful and or interesting.
Yep. We can't conclude these.
What the fuck?
We have no problem with intros. We hit the harmonica and just go in.
Yeah.
And then the outros.
And then we get to the outro with no energy left. And it's just...
Okay. I don't know how to conclude this.
Alright. Thanks for listening to our mini-series, guys.
Thank you, guys. Thanks. Yeah.
We really appreciate the support.
Do we do harmonica for the outro? We do, usually.
I think so.
Okay. Do a bit of harmonica. Okay, hold on.
Okay, hold on.
Do a harmonica that isn't, for dolphins.
Okay.
Alright, bye guys.
See ya.